What is up, ladies and gents? It's your boy Jermaine Event, main on MMA, and today we are checking out this video from the homie James Lynch. And it says, will the UFC and ESPN TV deal end in 10 days? 10 days from now. I didn't realize it was coming up so soon. So let's check out this video from our boy James Lynch. And, I'll react throughout and at the end, ladies and gents.
Hey everyone, James Lynch here. I wanted to do a quick video on the UFC TV deal because something I didn't realize, and credit to Twitter user here, Robert Joyner, who's someone that's very much on the pulse of the business side of the UFC, says just a reminder that the exclusive negotiating window between the UFC and ESPN ends on April 15th, so things should be heating up pretty soon with the UFC likely wanting to spend over multiple partners and platforms. Suitors will be coming in hot and heavy. So today's April 5th. We got 10 days. We're going to be finding out what's going on with the UFC very shortly in terms of their TV deal. I feel like this is something that's not being reported that much. And there's a couple other things I want to tie into this video, but there's a good discussion here between a couple different people on Twitter that are, again, very much in the know. So Fight Opinion, who's been covering the sport forever, since long before I started covering it, he goes, I put the over-under for the total package of the UFC new media rights at $850 million.
Who's Shapiro?
They could hit the over, but the more interesting part is if ESPN can keep any of it. And again, we know that live sports, it's definitely changing. We're seeing a lot of things happening when it comes to how people are consuming sports. A lot of stuff are getting, stuff off their phone. A lot of people are not watching a lot of live sports anymore. A lot of people are just watching highlights. So it's a very interesting time that the UFC is having this negotiating period with the UFC and ESPN. So it's something to keep in mind. And Fight Oracle, another guy who's very much well connected with I shouldn't say well connected, but he knows the business side of things very well. He goes, I'd be surprised if ESPN keeps the package. Mark Shapiro, obviously the TKO head of the UFC, basically so obviously there's Dana White and there's Shapiro as well as part of that TKO group. He says he's publicly calling out their pricing of pay-per-views was very telling. You don't just do that to your single largest partner. Well over half annual revenue is from ESPN, and he just called them out, basically saying they're screwing over fans and causing pay-per-view sales to nocitive since COVID. ESPN Plus is not a growth platform.
It's crazy expensive. So he's trying to say it's on ESPN for raising these prices. I thought it was the UFC just being greedy. But the head of the UFC called out ESPN for the pay-per-view prices. Interesting.
Platform stalled at 25 million subscribers. I don't think ESPN suffers without UFC. Does UFC think their brand suffers without ESPN coverage? That's a concern, but I don't think they're happy being there. Ari might already have a deal it's Ari Shapiro, not Mark Shapiro. Mark Shapiro's I think he's the president of the Blue Jays. I don't know why I got my Shapiros mixed up here, but it says, and Ari already might have a deal with Netflix done unofficially. So yeah, there's a lot of options, right? There's Prime, there's Netflix. Like back when they were doing their deal the first time, these weren't like viable options, I think, at the time, really, when it came to sports. We know Netflix now in bed with WWE. That could certainly be an option as well for the UFC. I think the UFC is dead set on having their pay-per-views still as something that you have to pay for. I don't think that's going to go away. So this is where things kind of come together. And again, I want to point out, I'm not an expert when it comes to the numbers or the negotiations when it comes to the TV deal, but these are people that I do follow in terms of what's going on in the business side of things. And it could be interesting here. This could really change how we're watching the UFC in terms of what TV deal they go with.
I would really hope it's Netflix. And then I can just get rid of ESPN Plus, because I don't really use ESPN Plus for anything other than the UFC fight nights, pretty much, and it's pay-per-view. But yeah.
I kind of agree with them here just from everything I've been reading, that I think it's not going to be one singular company. Like right now they're with ESPN. I could see them going with maybe Netflix and something else and just sort of packaging it. You're seeing this in other sports. And hockey, for example, we have in Canada, we have Sportsnet and Amazon Prime and TSN. So it's multiple partners that are involved. I think the UFC is going to do whatever deal is best for them. I don't think they're at a point where they're needing to like find a suitor. I think the UFC is a unique product and it's worldwide, and it's something that they're going to certainly, kind of look at all offers here and set with something, see what works best, basically. So I think that's kind of where things are going to go. But again, we're 10 days away. The UFC still has events booked and are figuring things out. So they must have an idea of which way they're going. But keep an eye out maybe over the next 2 weeks of where the UFC ends up there. Now, something that caught my eye yesterday that ties into this, MMA Guru had a tweet yesterday where he was talking about, kind of the ESPN's coverage of MMA. And he goes, starting to think me beating ESPN's MMA department on a monthly ad revenue generated isn't even accomplished anymore. These numbers are pitiful. ESPN must adjust or I will consume them. Actually, on that thought, I hope they don't adjust. And he was just talking about how, 639 views on a Josh Emmett, Lerone Murphy. And granted, the card this weekend isn't that strong, or the card today, I should say, is not that strong. But he's right. Like, this is something I talked about in other videos,
numbers.
that you have these content creators now who are getting...
You know what's crazy? Just to interrupt there. On the note of Josh Emmett, Lerone Murphy, as I was watching the card last night, I was like, damn, I didn't do a single video on this card. Like, it's almost like this card isn't happening. And with only 639 views in an hour, like, nobody was really interested in this fight other than the hardcores. And I watched it. Thought it was a great fight. I watched the whole card, honestly, but that's just me.
A ton of viewership, a ton of audience, and, you have companies like...
And shout out to Ode Osborne. That boy had me jumping out of my seat. I was like, holy shit. Shout out to Ode.
ESPN, and I mentioned this with Ariel's company on Crown. Like, they're spending a lot of money, but you're seeing the viewership not necessarily beating out these content creators who have way less overhead, right? You look at your gurus, Jesse on Fire, these names where they're getting these, really big audiences, but they're not paying a ton in overhead. And in fact, they're working for themselves. ESPN's a huge company. I actually took a quick browse at ESPN's kind of YouTube coverage. It's okay. I mean, some stuff's doing well. Like, you look at the Chandler Pimblett interviews. But yeah,
just
that preview
covered
he
that.
referenced 18 hours ago, 7.3K views.
That's funny. That was like one of the videos from that channel I wanted to react to. I didn't realize it was dwarfing everything. So that came out, it has 141K, the Michael Chandler and Patty interview that I reacted to. And the Josh Emmett one that came out 10 hours or maybe 2 hours after that only has just over 7,000 views. Sean O'Malley, well, that just was 16 minutes ago, so that'll skyrocket. That will skyrocket. But look at the Patricio Pitbull interview from 3 days ago, 4.7K views. All right. This is a niche ass sport. I'm covering a pretty niche sport.
Average channel, that's a good amount of views. They have 2 million subscribers and you're only getting 7,000 views on a preview. And I know, again, this is not the strongest card out there, but it is something worth keeping an eye on. Like, I wonder if that's another thing they're factoring in, is that the UFC might think like, hey, we don't need good coverage. Because let's be honest here. I haven't seen ESPN do a whole lot in terms of, driving the news cycle.
Yeah.
You've got Chael Sonnen and Daniel Cormier's show, which continues to get pretty good numbers overall. You've got some, good journalists here. Christian, who does obviously the Lepsky, who does all the Spanish stuff. He gets really good interviews. But like, I haven't seen Brett Okamoto in like forever. They have him on here, but I can't even remember the last interview that Brett Okamoto did that like drove the news or anything. He's kind of been put on the back burner. I've heard some rumblings about him having a rift with the UFC, or there was something
really?
that I think him and Dana got into it last year, but you barely ever see Brett Okamoto doing any sort of MMA stuff now. Obviously, Ariel left. They did hire Andreas Hale as well, sort of on the written side of things, but like, you guys tell me in the comments. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Like, I haven't really seen anything notable from ESPN over the last little bit. Like, the odd time you'll get a quote from DC and the bad guy that you'll see in the news cycle. But really, I see, other people's interviews that are sort of driving the news right now. So this could be factored into the TV deal, is that, maybe when they signed with ESPN, obviously it was like, okay, mainstream platform. It's certainly an upgrade from Fox, right? When they signed the TV deal, that was certainly something that was true. But I think part of it as well was, look, we're getting this really good coverage as well, because at the time Ariel was there, and I know the UFC.
Dude, nobody watches any of this shit. Hoofy had a good knockout against King Green. That post-fight interview there with 7.8K, I believe it says. Pretty small here. Yeah, this is crazy, man. They get nobody's paying attention to any of this coverage.
He doesn't like Ariel, but Ariel's still very popular. You have Brett.
Though I'll personally say, in my opinion, I don't look to ESPN for coverage on fights throughout the years. I feel like they've kind of disrespected MMA publicly. They've honestly preferred boxing, and they've publicly shit on MMA. So I don't really look to ESPN for MMA coverage, because for years you guys shit on it. But now that it's profitable, you're like, yeah, we got UFC over here. Because you can afford it, but I still don't respect your opinion. When you guys shove Stephen A. Smith out there to talk about some shit he clearly knows nothing about, I'm not rocking with any of that.
they had Mark Raimondi at the time. Remember, Mark Raimondi left as well too. He's now covering the NFL. So you've got Brett, you've got, I know Ian Parker does some betting stuff there too. But I just don't think it's really driving the needle. And I don't think it's even necessarily that ESPN doesn't have strong coverage. I think it's just the way people are consuming content now just isn't the way that people want to see. It's not the traditional media route of like, you know, you have to watch ESPN to get your coverage. I think people are going elsewhere, like the YouTubers and some of these other people. So again, I think this could all factor in here. And this is going to be a big story because, like I said, everyone, I know a lot of you out there, you watch every single UFC card. You know, it's going to impact how we're watching our events. So I just hope things go down in price. I don't think they will, but you know, here in Canada, we have everything on Sportsnet, and that's not going to change. This is only for Americans, really, the TV deal in terms of, you know, how you're going to buy pay-per-views, how you're going to watch all the content. This is really for you guys. For us, it doesn't matter. We're locked in Canada. We're locked in with Sportsnet, and nothing's going to change there at all. Like it's, you know, we can still buy the pay-per-views through Sportsnet or through Fight Pass. That's typically how I do it. But yeah, for you guys out there, I know you pay for ESPN Plus. We don't even have that in Canada. So you can't even watch any of the UFC stuff on ESPN Plus. So all these complaints that I hear about ESPN Plus having, you know, not being very good technically and all these different things, it's irrelevant to me because I've never had to use it. So hopefully for you guys, it ends up being something great. But, yeah, I mean, I think I speak for a lot of fans. I don't like paying for the pay-per-views. I wish there was a way that they could bundle everything in like a yearly package and you get like a discount on watching the pay-per-views because they're like $80 like every pay-per-view. That's too much.
Crazy.
Especially in this day and age when people are used to having things a little bit cheaper. You know, you look at your Netflix and other subscription services, they're not costing that much on a yearly basis. So but it's the UFC does business the way they want to do it, and they are dead set on the pay-per-views. So you could possibly see them putting pay-per-views on Netflix that you have to pay extra for. So that's something to keep in mind. So yeah, just wanted to have a quick discussion about this because I think this will be a big story over the next 2 weeks, and wanted to get ahead of it. And I think it's worth you know, having a discussion about it. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. A couple things. First thing, where do you think the UFC is going to end up with their TV deal? Do you think it's going to be multiple platforms?
Thank you, James, for the awesome insight. Takes on the situation. I agree. The pay-per-views are too expensive. $80 a month, sometimes twice a month. You know, sometimes you got to pay $80 twice a month if you want to watch the pay-per-view on top of the ever increasing ESPN Plus monthly subscription price. You guys increase that. It seems like every 5 months there's a increase in price for ESPN Plus, and then a month after that, I'll be like, oh yeah, and the price of the brick going up. All right, price of the brick going up every time, and I just yeah. So hopefully, I think Netflix would be a pretty dope. As I was saying, I don't personally look to ESPN for coverage on combat sports other than boxing. They've openly shit on MMA. So I'd be cool with them leaving ESPN. I don't think most people there, unless you're DC, unless you hire people from the scene, Ariel Helwani and all this, you don't really have anybody that knows what they're talking about. You got people who, like Stephen A., who very clearly have no idea what they're talking about. And it looks bad to me. As a fan of the sport you guys are trying to cover, I'm watching it and I'm like, this is terrible. Every time I see an interview, I'm like, I don't need to watch that because I'm just going to be upset. So I'd be happy with UFC going anywhere else, honestly, and doing away with pay-per-views would just be a fucking wet dream, but I don't think it's going to happen. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Head on over to James Lynch, give him a like, give him a subscribe, let him know mama sent you. All right, and let me know what you guys think about this deal that's ending in 10 days. Where do you think the UFC will end up next, ladies and gents? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for being here again. I'll see you guys soon. Featherweight, I'm more Francis Ngannou. I be the biggest problem out of any nigga I know. A little old school, like some 45 vinyls. You niggas old dudes, what that do to the wino? I do it the commercial way, pay without the splits.